I'll renounce. I'll send millions. What do you want? And then they talk to Jovan on my team. Let's just start with 20 grand, right?
Yeah, so you help people with this process, but the first step, what's the first step in establishing a second citizenship?
Well, there's everyone has got a different first step. One thing that I think, just from a general nomad capitalist standpoint, a good first step for people to do is to go and open a bank account somewhere else, because it's relatively easy. There are some banks that will let you open it without going there. There are some banks right now, if you can open them through power of attorney due to COVID, and so you don't have to go there through that reason, but generally they want someone to go in. Or in normal conditions, you just go into the bank, and sometimes it takes a day or two, you get an account. And the reason why I think that's a great first step for everybody is because if you find a bank in an emerging economy like an Ecuador, a Georgia, an Armenia, there are some others, I guess their list is always shrinking, Ukraine, Belarus, you can open an account in a day or two. You can put whatever money you're comfortable in, and then you can go and track it online. You can go and use the ATM card, and there may be a reporting requirement depending on how much you put in your country. We're not trying to hide money from the tax man. But you'll see, you will see, a month later, 6 months later, 12 months later, that money is still there. And so when it comes to all the other steps in the plan, one thing I've told people when I've talked to the people in the government of Georgia, for example, I did a lot of promotion of their banking sector and telling people to come to the country. And my premise was, a guy puts $1,000 in a bank account. Now it's on his mind. Now you're on his mind, and he's going to keep coming back because he likes the country, likes the people, likes the food, likes the great wine. And we've had people who have said, yeah, my third trip I bought a $250,000 apartment and I'm renting it out. And I think there's a great progression there that speaks to the human side of what it takes to kind of dip your toe into this. When it comes to getting a second citizenship, per your question, there's a couple different ways to do it. And so the way that is the best for you depends on what you would do first. So if you've got a parent, grandparent, great-grandparent from some other country, oftentimes in Europe, but also like Mexico, for example, or if you've got a spouse or a child even, you may be entitled to another passport either very quickly by living there or just without living there. So if you have an Irish grandparent, you can become an Irish citizen. No need to do anything else unless you want to further diversify beyond Ireland. If you don't have that luxury, then the first thing to do would be to consider, okay, what's my reason for doing it? Am I doing it because I'm going to have an immediate tax savings? I am no longer a US citizen. My reasons were more personal, but obviously having talked about my process of renunciation from a strategic and an emotional point of view, a lot of people come to me now who want to do that. Sometimes their motives are more tax motivated than mine are. And so, for them, going to one of these islands in the Caribbean, paying $100,000, 6 months later, they have the ability to leave the U.S. for good. That might save them $1 million the first year. And so that would be a good first step, rather than my friend who I helped get an Italian passport. It took him 3.5 years of bureaucracy. So it still might have been a good investment for him to say, well, my reason is I'm looking to save money because my country's chasing me down. I don't even live here and they want my money. But, you might also say, I'm going to go and set up residence in a country. You might go and invest in real estate. You get a residence permit. That leads to citizenship in 5 years. There are some countries that have what I call paper residence. You spend 2 weeks a year there. You spend 1 day a year there. You spend 1 day every 6 months there. And that keeps your residence active. And unlike the US or the UK or Australia, they don't require you to live there 273 days a year for 6 years to become a citizen. They just require you to have been a resident for 5 years. Maybe you've got to speak the language, maybe you don't, but then you can apply for your citizenship. So there's so many different ways to do it, and it really comes down to what's the objective. Obviously, my people that I'm working with are largely looking at finances and improving their quality of life and improving their freedom and their options.
Yeah. Quick, those are all great points, and as you're trying to get offshore and do that, there's literally 1,000 ways you can slice that. Me and my wife, when we had our daughter. We almost had her in Brazil.
Yeah.
Speaks Portuguese. But the big hiccup we hit, so we have 4 kiddos, and my oldest son was 8 at the time, or 8.5, and he wouldn't have gotten citizenship. Me and my wife and all 3 of my other kids, because they were under the age of 8, would have gotten citizenship except for him. And so that was kind of the no-go for us. It was kind of a bummer. We have friends in Brazil, and we were, had a place lined up to stay and, do the whole thing, and we would all been, Brazilian passports, and he wouldn't have gotten one. It's a weird that's the rule.
It is one thing you can do if you're having kids. Is if kids born in the United States are U.S. citizens by default. If you're an American and you have a kid somewhere else, you can go to the embassy and you can file a consular report of a birth abroad, and you can get that child U.S. citizenship, of course, through parents, right? Just because you're born overseas doesn't mean you're not American or Canadian or Dutch or whatever else. But, if you go to most of these American countries, as in the Americas, you can give birth there on the soil and your child will become a citizen of that country. And in some cases, you as the parent get a fast track to becoming a citizen as well. Yeah. There may or may not be tax consequences to what's required for that. But, what's interesting, again, just the different cultures of countries. I've talked to people in Brazil about this, and people aren't really opposed to it the way they are in the US or Canada, where they feel like people are taking advantage. Nobody in a lot of these other countries seems to. In fact, sometimes I think they kind of feel very nice about it, that people want to come there and use their hospitals and be part of their culture. So that's an opportunity for new parents.
Yeah, that was very cool. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it seems like it, obviously I haven't done extensive research on getting citizenship in other countries, but it seems like it is much easier than, probably the average person would have thought, just initially thinking about it. For any of our listeners who might be thinking like, hey, is this for me? Or yes, I have thought about at least escaping California. What are probably some of the first things people should start asking themselves? Like, what are some hurdles that you have to get over? What are you willing to give up? What are kind of your things that you walk people through? And like, hey, if you're going to do this, these are the things that we're going to have to dedicate ourselves to.
Well, I don't know that getting a second citizenship requires a lot of compromise. Again, if you're going to go and live somewhere, if you're going to go and live in Germany for the next 8 years and learn German, that's obviously a compromise. I generally don't deal with that. And so I think the first question you have to ask yourself is, number one, where do I want to live? Do I think that where I live now is always where I'm going to want to live? And number two, am I at the point in my life where I could benefit from an insurance policy? We do help people who are younger or just starting out with cheaper insurance policies than this $100,000 donation. There are places where you might go and put $50,000 in government bonds. There are other places where you might just prove your income. Yes, I make $3,000 a month. Here it is. They'll give you a residence permit. Maybe you have to spend time in the country a couple of years from now. Maybe it's a call option. But I think that if you're a successful person, you've got to look around and say, what's the future in this country? Because you're mentioning wealth taxes, higher income taxes. You've got $26 trillion in debt now in the United States. Other countries are following suit. Someone's going to pay that bill. And I can tell you, the one thing about the United States in particular is they are not very egalitarian about it in the way that some Scandinavian societies are, where everyone agrees to chip in. Half the country will continue to pay nothing and get more rebates, and everyone else will be expected to pay more because billionaires shouldn't exist. Then don't shop on Amazon, don't buy an iPhone, don't do whatever, but that goes over like a Led Zeppelin with these people, so you'll just be paying. And so what I suggest is, if you're looking at a second citizenship, do I think that the country I'm in is going to respect my freedom and my wealth for the rest of my life? And if not, I look at like buying car insurance. Now, if you're going to actively live overseas and you're thinking, let me diversify with a second citizenship, then I think the conversation there is, if you're single, it's a relatively easy conversation. You commit to, let me try this for a year and see what happens. If you hate it, I guess it's not for you. You come back, you pay the 56%. I think, kind of getting yourself into a mindset of let me try this for a year and giving yourself an out and being able to save face is good. If you're married, you really need to have a conversation and make sure you're on the same page. And I've had a lot more couples who are on the same page recently, but obviously historically, it's a situation where sometimes, one person in the relationship is more limited, or one person doesn't want to go at all. And I think you have to make some decisions about that. If you're married, obviously it's tougher. I've had guys, they have a girlfriend, and they've sometimes, been on the phone crying with me that she doesn't want to go, or she can't go, or this or that. And they're giving up on their dream to see the world and to make the most of their business. And sometimes they go back to the girlfriend. And I'm not going to judge what's right for them, but to me, I think that you have to make some tough decisions about what it is that you want. And I think so many people sacrifice what it is that they really want because they think it's not appropriate. They've been told not to focus on that. And I think a lot of people could be living a better life if they simply went where they were treated best.
Yeah. I'll definitely breach that conversation with my wife about if we want to bounce out of here. But I might wait until she's going to have a baby any day now, so I might wait until after that event. I did tell her, I was like, you have to wait until at least after the 18th. So
it's not too late to go to Brazil, though.
Okay, yeah, that's true. And last minute tickets are cheap right now. So
well, yeah, obviously it's a weird situation, but I think it's a good conversation to have, and I also think that there's a way to ease into things. I talked to a family recently. They've got 6 people, so their approach is going to be a little bit different than what I did when I started out. And so in their case, it's we're looking at this as the long term. One thing I love about other cultures, particularly Asian cultures, is they're looking at the long term. Just talked to a couple guys from Hong Kong yesterday. Everything is my 10 and 20 year plan. And so what this family of 6, for example, was telling me is, let's spend the next year and a half exploring and seeing where we feel comfortable and not rushing into it. And we understand that as we transition away from our business here on the ground, we're not going to really get all the tax savings now, but we're building the bridge. And I'm seeing more of that recently. I think with better and better people is they're willing to put in that time and say, it's like anything in business. You're investing in your business now into a plant or into equipment or whatever. You're not selling it tomorrow. And there's going to be costs. And I think that's the other question you have to ask yourself is, if you can save yourself $1 million in taxes, I'm certainly not the cheapest guy to work with, but we do take that global holistic view. It might cost you 50 grand. And, it's never fun to pay 50 grand, but you're going to get the money back slowly over time. And so I think those are the things that you need to ask yourself. And I think you need to understand kind of what's the long-term plan and seeing that as well.
Yeah. I do want to kind of shift gears just a little bit. You kind of did just mention Hong Kong. And so we are here, mid to late 2020. And Hong Kong's been in a massive upheaval for about the last, 9 months, 10 months, I guess, going on now. How is that trying to change that Asian landscape a little bit? And, is that kind of starting to shift dollars out of Hong Kong and into Singapore and other places? Or, that's kind of it's not something nobody saw coming a year ago.
Yeah, perhaps. I think in a sense, part of what I do is I look at shattering misconceptions. The United States is a superpower. They exert a lot of control over things in the world. China obviously has been emerging in that role. I think that to a certain extent, having that in your life as a hedge, particularly from the United States or the West, is not the worst thing in the world to do. And if you look at Hong Kong, for example, their offshore tax system has been largely unaffected, I think because they have the backing of China that Barbados, for example, does not have. And they were able to offer more favorable conditions to people who invest there. Obviously, some people are concerned about it, and I think that, from my perspective, I don't always go into the strategy of it in cases like this, or my opinion on it, because I think that you have to do what feels comfortable for you. And I can push and I can prod. This is why we've expanded our process over the years. It used to be, you talk to me a couple times, here's your plan. We'd still do the global holistic thing, but we missed a lot of the human pieces. That comes from constantly talking to people, having a different voice talk to you that you're more comfortable with. Sometimes guys talk to me, I'll renounce, I'm throwing I'll send millions, what do you want? And then they talk to Jovan on my team, let's just start with 20 grand, right? And, I'll stay in the US for now, okay.
So I guess, wrapping back into the services you offer to people, where do people go? Let's plug the book again. Hold up the book. Where do people start this journey of talking about the Nomad Capitalist and how it pairs with their feelings, right? Like where do they start unfolding, all this?
Well, the book, just for those listening, the book is called Nomad Capitalist. It's on Amazon. I wrote it over the course of 2 years, and it's a primer to everything that's possible in the industry that we are in. It's not certainly a how-to guide for how to do transfer pricing between your BVI and Canadian subsidiaries with your U.S. sales office. Yeah, that's like the Seinfeld episode with George reading risk management. You're an expert in risk management? So, I think where people should start is the book. Because it's laid out. You don't have to watch 1,000 videos. You don't have to read, 2,000 blog posts that I've written over the years, 7 years of doing this. And the book nicely summarizes it and talks about the opportunities. I think you need to connect with your why. I think anytime you want to accomplish something, What is the why? Why are you interested in this? Why are you doing this? You did not just get a hunger pang for getting a second passport yesterday, or for, wanting to lower your taxes. What's the reason? And I think just saying, well, I want to lower my taxes, or just being, I'm angry about it, it's not enough. There has to be something that you want to run to. I want to run to having a tax rate under 10% so that I can reinvest more money in my company, hire more people, make a bigger impact, sell the company, keep more of that, ensure my generational wealth, do philanthropy, contribute to causes that are important to me. I mean, take it further and further. There's kind of a psychological tactic of asking a question and then you give the answer. Okay, why? Answer, why? Okay, why? And only when you start kind of repeating yourself and going in a loop have you really reached the depths of it. And so I think that's what people have to really examine, is asking themselves that. The same thing that you have to ask, why am I getting out of debt? Why am I starting a business? What is the reason for this? I want to be free. I don't want to have a boss. I don't want people telling me what to do. Okay, well, how do we apply that to the same stuff that we're talking about here?
No. Absolutely. I think those are all really good points. Yeah. And sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yes, it does kind of, there is such a common thread amongst, all the, people we've talked to either on the show or in business or anyone who has that entrepreneurial spirit. It does always come down to, the chiropractor didn't want to be a chiropractor because he was fascinated with backs, right? I mean, there was something else going on, or we had another one of our more fascinating guests, I think, who started a enteral formula company, and it was a nutritionally dense enteral formula, and it was because she had a child with special needs that she wanted to take hiking because she wanted because she wanted her daughter to not be a burden to her brothers. There's just so much more to it. I think, going back to that why, it does kind of drive the question on hey, why do you want to even get out of the U.S., right? I mean, maybe you don't want to get out of the U.S. and this is a bad plan for you. Maybe you should stay put.
I agree. No, I agree. And I think that's been the maturity. The thing that we all go through in life is letting everyone else have their own plan. I have family who lives in the United States. That's what works for them. Obviously, I think what you shouldn't accept is people in your family, your friends, shaming you or trying to tell you what to do or trying to tell you that you're stupid for doing it. I think far too many people, they live to please others in a way. I mean, I like to see others win. Again, I think the great philosophy that we talked about before was winners want other people to win. I want people to be successful. I like watching that. But I also don't want everyone to win by having control over me and causing me to lose. I want mutual winning. And so, yeah, I think everyone has the right thing for them. But again, my point is, what's right for you in the context of a full body of knowledge? Yeah. They have beaches outside of California. They have beautiful women outside of California. They have nice restaurants outside of California. Everything that you want from a certain place can be replicated somewhere else. And, when you get to the point of the ad hominem attacks where, those dumb Mexicans. Listen, Mexico to me is a lot of freedom, beautiful culture, amazing food. You want cities, you want mountains, you want beaches, you want it all. You've got amazing people. And you can find that in a lot of places in the world. And yet so many people are using defensiveness to stop themselves from doing that. And then they're going home and listening to what, their mom wants them to do and living her life. And I don't think it's a recipe for success. And I don't think it's why you started a business. And I don't think it's why you decided to be different. And I don't know why you do it now.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely. Well, I think that is a, because we can kind of wrap up here. I think that's a great, great point to end on too. If people want to find you, want to ask questions, want to start going down this journey, plug the website, where should people be going?
Well, so the book Nomad Capitalist on Amazon, it's $10 or something, right? And again, obviously, there's a difference in a $10 book and a consulting plan. What I try and do is put out a lot of free information to help people understand this. A lot of it is strategic, how to get this passport, how to set up a company here. Some of it also has this more psychological, human approach that I talk about, which I think we're unique in talking about because I believe it's important. And having lived this, not just I'm just a guy selling passports, some Swiss guy selling passports who doesn't need any other passports, but he'll sell you a second passport. I actually know what it's like.
And it was 1992 Saturn.
Probably nicer than that, but so I blend that in. I think that we have youtube.com/nomadcapitalist, nomadcapitalist.com is the website. And you can just go through the content and find what speaks to you and see what's going on. And if you think it's a fit, generally the people that we're working with, are 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs. So that means, you're making at least $500,000 a year, up to, whatever. We've had people all the way up the food chain, people who have exited companies, people who are investors in things like crypto or day traders. We had a couple of those. So if that's you, then you can go to the website, you can click on our little client button, and we have a whole process where we want to get to know what your objectives are and why you're doing this. And we want to make sure you're a good fit, because I think that what's different about what we do, we have a lot of wealthy people who've come and said, I hired the Big Four and it didn't feel real to me. And I imagine that, I've known people who've worked at the Big Four, and some of our suppliers used to work at the Big Four and they got out. And, it becomes a little soulless just helping some big corporation save on taxes. For me, this is about a life change. It's about more freedom. It's about more options. It's about more money to do the things that are important for you. For me, I've been more charitable, by not giving my money to the U.S. government. I've been able to be more charitable and expand that. So for me, I want to know that people who are doing this want to have a better life, and it's not a bean counting exercise. And that's important to me. And as a boutique, guy who works with, 10 or 12 people a month, I want to enjoy it too. And I want to see people really getting it done.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Well, awesome. You can get a hold of Andrew and his team, nomadcapitalist.com. Make sure you hit up his book again. If you hold that up one more time, Andrew, show everybody. You got a copy of it there.
This is the book. It's now I'm like the guy I used to be in the infomercial. I used to help people place their radio infomercials. Now I'm like in the TV infomercial. This is the book, and it's just $19.95. It's not in the stores. You can get it on Amazon, and that's 260 some pages of introduction to all this stuff.
Yeah, well, make sure you get that. That's a good place to start, and then check out his YouTube channel, YouTube/Nomad Capitalist, and get yourself educated, and then head on over the website and fill it out and get to work. Get to being a nomad. That's exciting stuff. Okay, last two questions, Mark. Yep. I'll say one, and you can say the very last one. But okay, so you talked about some of them already, but what are the most popular destinations, at least currently in today's day and age, that people are either getting second passports to, or that second residence, or setting up banking relationships? Kind of what's the top 5, I guess?
It really is all over the map. So I'll just go through a couple of things. Banking, obviously, sure. Places like Singapore, I think a lot of wealth is moving to Asia because countries in Europe have become increasingly difficult, especially if you're an American, very difficult. As a former American, a lot of banks in Switzerland don't want to talk to me. If you get accepted, there's a lot of rules. If you don't have as much money, you're trying to dip a toe in. I mentioned the Ecuadors, Georgias, Armenia is a big one. I like the Armenians. Those are good places to start. For countries, I have homes in 5 different cities right now, so I'll say the places that I think are good, which is Malaysia, Georgia, Colombia, Belgrade, or Serbia, Montenegro. I'd make sure I didn't forget any. Those are good places to live. There are many others, by the way. A lot of people like Portugal. A lot of people are going to Mexico. In terms of second passports, again, if it's from your ancestry, the options are endless. I have a lot of people who are doing these Caribbean citizenship by investment programs now because they just want to be done. They want to have their options. They want to have their backup plan. They want to be able to do what they were, there's a sense of freedom. The first time I got a second passport and I got it and I was looking at it, I'm like, now I feel like I have options. It's not theoretical anymore. And so I think some people are increasingly going to St. Lucia. I'm a St. Lucian, or Antigua or whatever else, and they're just saying, let's do that. But there are many others. So, there's really, the number of permutations. The people that we work with, we do inherently do some of the same things over and over. I became known as Mr. Georgia a while ago. I'm not doing nearly as much stuff in Georgia now. But, the kind of people we worked with at the time, it suited a lot of their requirements, right? Now we have a more diverse group, and there's more countries available, and some, countries rise and fall. But, there's so many permutations out there.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah,
well, Last question. I think this might be the most important question we ask in all of our 2 episodes. We didn't have the pleasure of doing this in person, or you'd be able to tell that I am a bit of a foodie based on my physique. If I am, looking for best food, like your favorite country's food, where am I booking a flight?
My wife and I, Mrs. H and I, we talk about this because she likes to cook, and there's 3 that stand out to me. So Georgia's one of them, which is off the radar, and it's so interesting and it's so exotic to most people. You've got some of the most amazing food, and they were the birthplace of wine. They have amazing wines. You can try a Kinsmorale wine if you like something that's a semi-sweet red. Very hard to find those. There's a lot of like Akasheni, more dry wines. So amazing food in Georgia. Mexico, I think, probably one of the best food cultures in the world, more familiar to folks in the United States. But obviously, despite the fact that one of the few things I miss about the U.S. is the occasional late night Taco Bell drive-through run, that ain't real Mexican food. So go to Mexico City. But I'm still embarrassed because when I was I bought a house in Colombia last November, and the month before we were in Mexico City, and we were hitting up these street taco carts, and got a little pudgy, quite frankly, because the food is so good, and you have like so many. There's like, if you go to Polanco in Mexico City, you've got incredible steakhouses. We went to Harry's Steakhouse, for example, just incredible. And then Malaysia, I think, is also good because you've got a confluence of numerous different cultures, from the Middle Eastern to the Indian to the Chinese to the Malay culture. Went to a restaurant called the Kabaya Dining Room in Penang last weekend. One of the best restaurants in the world, in my opinion. Not expensive at all, by the way. Amazing vibe. So those are 3 countries that I personally like. I think that you'll do very well there.
Well, what do you eat in Georgia? I just gotta know.
If you come up with a passport by food, I'm in, right?
A food passport, yeah.
Yes.
Or
yeah. What are they
food? Yeah.
Okay. I gotta know.
So,
what's that, Josh?
What do they serve in Georgia that's so good? Is it just the whole experience, or?
Well, so yeah, they have the Georgian Supra, and so I'll do this now. We had a party of about 12 people here recently, and a couple of them were like Ukrainian or Russian, so they understood, but the others didn't understand. There's 12 common Georgian toasts, but there's actually many more toasts, and by the end of the night, you'll have some guys, they'll drink 2 or 3 liters of wine, and they'll just be toasting, and it'll just be incredible. And I mean, you've got so many, you've got vegetarian dishes, you've got pkhali, you've got these kind of bread boats you might have seen with like an egg and cheese in kind of inside. You've got kind of what looks like pizzas, like that are called hachapuri. So there's different kinds of hachapuri from the different regions. You've got kebabs, you've got minced beef, you've got you've got chicken salads, you've got lamb, you've got, I'm missing so many things. I mean, it's just endless, and you can just go and everything's fantastic.
Love it.
Well, it's 10 p.m. here, and I'm going to go snacking. So
yeah, it's food time.
I'm ending my day.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I know it's early in the morning there, and we just really appreciate it. This was great stuff. I know our listeners are really going to appreciate. Kind of any last closing thoughts? Anything you want to close with?
No, I listen. I think for me, keeping those 5 words, the 5 magic words, go where you're treated best, in mind, because there are so many threats in our business lives and our personal lives that are trying to take us away from that. People want us to do something that's in their best interest. I think that opening up yourself to realize that there are no sacred cows. Go where you're treated best does not care about how what you feel about the U.S. banks. It cares that they're not the best, and there's a better place to store your money, for example. And if you can put the strategy side together with the feeling side, I think, and break through some of these barriers, I think you will have incredible success. I've grown a lot as a person by doing this because I've learned by being in different cultures more about myself, more about what my values are. I've improved a lot, grown faster, and I think you can grow as a person, as a business owner, by following these things and by being a little different. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.